As the casket descended slowly into the earth beneath a relentless gray sky, Elena felt the final thread of her old life snap when her husband, billionaire Victor Langford, pressed crisp divorce papers into her trembling hand right there at her father's graveside, his voice low and final. "It's over, Elena. Sign them today." The words landed like a physical blow, stealing her breath as rain mingled with the tears streaming down her fair face, her 7 months pregnant belly heaving with silent sobs while the small crowd of mourners stared in stunned silence. She clutched the damp papers, her simple black mourning gown clinging to her curves, realizing with crushing clarity that in one devastating afternoon she had lost her beloved father forever and now faced losing the father of her unborn child, the sprawling mansion that had been their home, every promise of security and shared tomorrows. Victor, 35, his tanned features set in an unreadable mask beneath the brim of his black umbrella, his tailored suit impeccable even in the downpour, turned away without another word, leaving her utterly alone amid the scent of wet earth and wilting flowers. What dark secret had twisted the man who once held her like she was his entire world into this stranger capable of such cruelty at her lowest moment? How could she possibly rebuild a life for herself and her baby when everything she had trusted was crumbling around her? Elena barely remembered the drive home in the silent limousine, her body curled protectively around her belly as if shielding the tiny life inside from the pain radiating through her. She stared at the papers again and again, Victor's bold signature mocking her. Irreconcilable differences, they claimed, but she knew better. For months she had sensed the distance widening, his phone calls ending abruptly, perfume on collars that wasn't hers, evenings when he returned smelling faintly of expensive restaurants she had never been invited to. She had chosen denial, clinging to the memories that still warmed her, their whirlwind courtship 5 years ago when she was just 23, a wide-eyed junior marketer in a city that felt too big. Victor had spotted her across a crowded charity ballroom, drawn to her genuine laugh amid the calculated chatter. He had crossed the room in his charcoal suit, extending a hand with that magnetic smile that made her heart stutter. They danced until the music stopped, his tanned arms encircling her waist, whispering compliments that made her blush beneath the chandeliers. That night ended with their first kiss on a moonlit terrace, soft and searching, igniting a passion that felt infinite. Within months he proposed on a private yacht at sunset, dropping to one knee as waves lapped gently against the hull, slipping a flawless diamond onto her finger while promising her the stars. Their wedding had been a dream, white roses everywhere, vows spoken with tears in his eyes, their honeymoon in Tuscany filled with lazy mornings in silk sheets, his lips tracing every inch of her skin, bodies moving together in perfect rhythm, whispering, forever, between breathless kisses. Pregnancy had seemed to bring them closer at first. Victor had been attentive, attending every ultrasound, pressing his ear to her growing belly to hear the heartbeat, buying tiny onesies with ridiculous enthusiasm. "Our little miracle," he called the baby, his hand splayed protectively over her stomach as kicks fluttered against his palm. But gradually the tenderness faded. Meetings ran late, trips multiplied, affection became mechanical. She told herself it was the pressure of running a billion-dollar empire in cutting-edge AI and fintech. She never imagined he would discard her like yesterday's news the very day she buried her father. The mansion felt hollow when she returned to pack. Echoes bounced off marble floors as she folded clothes into suitcases, the nursery untouched except for the mobile of stars still spinning lazily above the empty crib. Staff offered awkward condolences, avoiding her gaze. By evening she was gone, driven to a modest rented apartment on the edge of the city, peeling paint, thin walls, the constant hum of traffic below. She sank onto the narrow bed, exhaustion and grief pulling her under, waking only to nausea and the ache of loneliness. Prenatal visits became solitary rituals. She sat in waiting rooms surrounded by couples holding hands, forcing smiles when nurses asked about her partner. At night she talked to her belly in the dark, promising, "Mama will figure this out. We don't need him." Desperation drove her to her father's old journals, pages filled with sketches of medicinal plants and handwritten recipes for healing salves. He had been a quiet botanist, turning his backyard garden into a sanctuary of lavender, calendula, chamomile. "Plants don't judge," he used to tell her, showing her how to crush petals for soothing balms that eased her childhood scrapes. Grief-stricken but restless, Elena cleared space on the tiny kitchen counter and began recreating his blends, simple cream scented with rosemary and mint, teas blended for calm. She labeled jars by hand, photographed them against her windowsill, and launched Legacy Bloom on a free online platform. The first sale came from an old college friend, then a stranger left a review saying the chamomile lotion had eased her insomnia. Slowly, orders trickled in. But Victor's legal team moved swiftly. A letter arrived freezing her meager bank accounts, citing marital property clauses that claimed even her small inheritance might be contested. Panic clawed at her chest. How would she pay rent next month, buy maternity clothes that actually fit, prepare for a baby due in weeks? She sat on the floor surrounded by jars, tears falling onto labels, whispering apologies to the life growing inside her. One thunderous evening an unmarked envelope slid under her door. Inside lay damning evidence, bank transfers, forged documents, proof that Victor had quietly diverted funds from her father's struggling herbal supplement company years ago, money that seeded his first big venture. Photos captured secret meetings, signatures that matched those on her divorce papers. A single typed note accompanied it: "He took more than money. Use this wisely." Her hands shook. This could destroy him publicly, trigger investigations, topple his empire. Revenge dangled tantalizingly close: expose him, watch him fall as she had fallen. Yet something deeper stirred, her father's voice echoing, "Hatred poisons the soil. Let kindness grow instead." She locked the envelope in a drawer, heart pounding with the weight of the choice. Instead of striking back, Elena poured everything into her work. She rose before dawn, mixing batches while Liam kicked vigorously, as if cheering her on. At weekend markets she set up a small table in jeans and cozy cardigans, her fair skin flushed from effort, demonstrating how a drop of eucalyptus oil could clear the mind. Customers lingered, drawn to her quiet authenticity. There she met Alex, 32, olive-skinned, with kind hazel eyes and an easy laugh. He owned a boutique investment firm focused on ethical startups. He bought a set of her teas, returned the next week for more, then asked thoughtful questions about sourcing and scaling. Coffee meetings followed, professional at first, then personal. He spoke of his own past, a broken engagement that taught him patience, a childhood without much stability. He listened when Elena shared fragments of her story, never pressing, never pitying. One golden afternoon in a park bursting with spring blossoms, he took her hand beneath a flowering cherry tree. "You're building something beautiful from ashes," he said softly. "I'd like to help, if you'll let me." Their first real kiss happened that evening on her apartment balcony, gentle and hesitant, then deepening with a hunger born of mutual healing. Alex's touch was reverent, fingers brushing her cheek, lips trailing down her neck, hands cradling her belly as if it held the most precious secret. Nights together became sanctuaries, slow dances in the living room to soft music, shared baths where he washed her hair, passionate hours where bodies spoke what words could not, always tender, always affirming. Legacy Bloom exploded. A viral post from a popular wellness influencer praised the calming properties of her blends. Orders flooded in. Elena hired her first employees, women who had faced their own hardships, turning the kitchen into a bustling workshop filled with laughter and purpose. Revenue allowed a larger space, better equipment, a proper nursery stocked and ready. When labor came, Alex held her hand through every contraction in the bright delivery room. Liam arrived at dawn, fair-skinned like her, with a shock of dark hair and lungs that announced his presence loudly. Holding him against her chest, Elena wept with a mixture of joy and release, the past loosening its grip. Victor's downfall played out in headlines, affairs exposed, financial irregularities questioned, shares tumbling. Elena barely glanced at the news, her focus was Liam's first smile, his tiny fingers wrapped around hers. Alex proposed quietly one evening in her father's old garden, now restored behind their new home, kneeling among blooming lavender with a simple ring that caught the moonlight. Their wedding was small and heartfelt, vows spoken under an arch of white roses, Liam gurgling happily in a tiny tuxedo. Nights were filled with romance reborn, candlelit dinners, weekend escapes to cabins where they made love slowly by firelight, bodies entwined in deep connection, whispers of gratitude between kisses. Then, on a crisp autumn day when Legacy Bloom had grown into an international brand with stores and a foundation supporting single mothers, Victor appeared. He looked diminished, gaunt cheeks, shadowed eyes, a rumpled coat hanging loosely on his frame. He sank to his knees on her office threshold. "It's terminal," he rasped. "Pancreatic cancer. I pushed you away because I couldn't bear dragging you through my decline. I was wrong, about everything. Please, let me see him. Let me say goodbye properly." The room spun. Flashbacks assaulted her, his laughter during their first dance, the way he once looked at her like she was his universe, the betrayal that followed. Yet here was a broken man, stripped of power, asking for mercy. After anguished nights of reflection, Elena allowed carefully supervised visits. Victor held Liam with trembling hands, tears carving tracks down his face, murmuring apologies and stories of the man he used to be. It brought no rekindling, only quiet closure, a chance for Liam to know his biological father had loved him, however imperfectly. Years later Elena stood on a stage accepting an award for ethical entrepreneurship, Liam at her side, Alex's arm around her waist. She spoke of resilience, of choosing growth over bitterness, of love that endures through storms. Her empire thrived, but her greatest wealth was the family she had built, the garden she tended with her son, teaching him to plant seeds of kindness, the nights wrapped in Alex's arms, their passion as fierce and tender as ever, the knowledge that pain, when met with courage, becomes the soil for something extraordinary. Betrayal can shatter you, but it cannot define you. Rise anyway. Bloom anyway. Love anyway. Because the heart that survives the darkest winter is the one that greets the spring most beautifully. If this story moved you, touched something deep inside, please hit like and subscribe. We share more journeys of heartbreak, healing, and unbreakable hope every week. Your support keeps these stories alive. Thank you for being here.